There are many horrors along the fringes and dark places of New Eden, but few of these are as feared as Sansha's nation. The existence of the nation is a testament to the dark possibilities of technology and the will of one man, Sansha Kuvaki. The genius of Sansha founded and sustained a nation, but his vision of an intellectual elite served by cybernetic slaves led to its downfall. Yet as hard as they tried to scrub out the stain of Sansha's nation, the galaxy failed and the dream lived on. For 100 years, the nation was little more than a presence haunting the space lanes and remote corners of New Eden. But now they are once more a force to be reckoned with. Kuvaki himself, believed dead for decades, has returned and reclaimed his place at the head of the nation. The old empires see the incursions by Sansha's fleets and his true slave soldiers as a threat that could destroy them all. So grave is this malice that they must call upon the double-edged sword of the Capsuleer mercenaries to help throw back the invading servants of their old enemy. Before there was a nation, there was Sansha. A strange and wealthy man, even before his dreams began to be realized. Sansha Kuvaki's rise began in those wild and heavy days when much of New Eden was uncolonized and unexplored. The Kuvaki family, an old Caldari industrial power, had made their fortune manufacturing arms during the War of Succession with the Galente Federation. As the war had settled down to little more than border conflicts and disputes, the empires began to look ever outward, encouraging colonization. After succeeding his father as head of the family, Sansha found himself wealthy and restless. He looked at Caldari society, at all societies, and was dissatisfied. He had another vision, an eccentric and crazy vision, but a vision all of his own. Developing his own space technology programs while maintaining a strong presence in the arms sector, Kuvaki built up his fame and fortune. The Kuvaki Corps struck out into space and developed numerous colonies and mining operations. Over time, a distinct realm was carved out by Kuvaki, fully independent of the other empires and highly profitable. He marketed his domain as a new promised land, instilling himself as its central messiah figure, Sansha's nation, as it would be called. A rising player in the politics of New Eden and an ever more popular destination for emigration. By the year YC5, shortly after the establishment of Concord, the borders of Sansha's nation were drawn. With the ranks of his followers growing, Kuvaki was able to establish a proper government in his domain. Sansha's nation had become a very real power. But this was not enough for Kuvaki. His disdain for the core empires was deeply ideological in nature, and Sansha himself was not interested in merely replicating another nation. Having achieved a measure of his dreams, he began to cast about for ways to fully realize his utopian vision. At first, he simply preached utopian ideas, such as his dream of a nation ruled by the intellectual elite for the good of all. These notions quickly gained him more followers, particularly from those who saw themselves in that elite circle. The nation continued to prosper, and everyone living within its borders, from close members of Kuvaki's circle to the workers in his arms factories, had nothing but praise for Sansha and his achievements. This praise only fueled Kuvaki's delusions of grandeur and megalomania, spurring him into exploring even stranger ideas. Sansha had always believed that humanity would be better off under his rule, free of all burdens, and a loyal army of workers and soldiers. Kuvaki considered using his resources to develop robotic servants, but in the end, he believed that drones, no matter how advanced their AI, would still lack creativity, instinct, and adaptability. Sansha wanted to build his new world order on the only platform that would answer his needs: the human being. But he also knew that this could only be made possible to his standards with technology. To his knowledge, the best joining of human and machine was found with the hydrostatic capsule as given to the Caldari by the Jove sometime earlier. After studying the potential of this capsule technology, Kuvaki came up with the idea of fusing capsule tech with existing brain implant technology to create willing slaves. The implant technologies he intended to experiment with were highly illegal, and in order to perfect them, he would need test subjects. Here were sown the seeds of Sansha Kuvaki's downfall. The Amar were the leaders in implant technology and suffered no scruples when it came to trafficking in human flesh. In fact, the Amarans were more than eager to cooperate with Sansha, anticipating that they might gain new methods of controlling their own slave populations from the venture. Minmatar slaves were soon sent to Kuvaki's promised land. The experiments on them were brutal. Sansha's every effort was bent towards turning his subjects into an utterly loyal army who would live and die at his command. Kuvaki succeeded, and his biomedical facilities were soon pouring out a steady stream of cybernetically enhanced slaves. True slaves, as he called them. The true slaves were used for every kind of labor, but their adaptability made them suitable for many tasks far above the routine. Sansha also began to assign the true slaves as guards and soldiers, replacing the entirety of the nation's military with indoctrinated soldiers and pilots. Scientists, philosophers, artists, and other intellectuals became the nation's true citizens. Initially, most were unaware of the extent of Sansha's crimes, but over time they understood the nature of this new order. Most of them accepted it as simply the evolution and ideology that had attracted them to Sansha's nation in the first place. The true citizens helped spread the good word of the nation, bringing more and more followers into the realm. Only a few decades after its foundation, Sansha's nation spanned several regions and was beginning to rival the core empires in power. By now, even the Amar were growing concerned, and closer scrutiny of Sansha's nation by the Empire was inevitable. The years following Sansha's development of the true slaves were ones of turmoil for the nation. Many of those who had migrated there in search of the Promised Land returned to their home systems empty-handed. The true slaves had supplanted them in the workforce, and many other citizens had simply disappeared. The curiosity of the empires had peaked, sending diplomats and agents to ask hard questions of Sansha. Some of them disappeared as well. Others died in ways that were not at all subtle. Stations exploded, ships crashed, and many vanished. Kuvaki was unable to stem the tide. It was fast becoming obvious that something was very wrong in Sansha's nation. In the year YC37, the truth of Sansha's nation was revealed to New Eden. The joint efforts of a Minmatar investigator and a Galente security agency presented the incontrovertible evidence. Concord called for Sansha to surrender himself and face charges. Kuvaki refused. He knew that his secret would be uncovered sooner or later, and he had feared that the rest of New Eden would fail to understand his vision. Defenses were prepared to resist the inevitable. However, even Sansha himself had not anticipated the strength and ferocity that would be coming down upon him. The 5 Concord empires, including the Jove, who were normally reluctant to intervene, all banded together in a coalition against Sansha. By that time, those remaining in the nation were either the fanatical elite or the hollow-minded true slaves. That at least was the position of the empires. The coalition swept into Kuvaki's domain without mercy or compunction. They destroyed every ship and fleet they encountered. They reduced the settlements and infrastructures of the nation to rubble and ash. The Sansha loyalists and true slaves put up considerable resistance. Strongholds of the nation survived for months, but ultimately the collapse was total and inevitable. Sansha himself was said to be killed. During the final assaults of the invasion and suppression of his nation, the rumors of his death came to be. The coalition recovered remains matching his genetic pattern. Some elements of his forces managed to evade capture or destruction, hiding until the coalition withdrew back to the core empires. Nevertheless, the once mighty Sansha's nation had crumbled into a shadow of its former self. Sansha Kuvaki himself was missing without a trace. His death was unconfirmed. This concludes our story on the rise and fall of Sansha's nation in the universe of EVE Online. New Eden is a setting with so much potential for complex stories on the side of its lore. The tales told by its players and community about the Great Wars have constantly mesmerized me time and time again. The Reddit posts, the propaganda, it's all so good. I'd encourage anyone that enjoys science fiction to at least give it a try sometime. I'd also just like to thank everyone for taking the time to watch this. If you have any other topics you'd like to see explored in a format like this, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments below. Take take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.